This Southerner, with a certain set of survival skills, gets something exquisite. Here's a look at the Hiya toys with the Walking Dead Exquisite Super Series, Daryl Dixon. This highly articulated 1/12 scale action figure from The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon stands 6.2 inches tall and faithfully captures Daryl's rugged facial features. Dressed in a black trench coat, mud-covered marching boots, and a detachable canvas bag, Daryl's clothing, jeans, and belts are all crafted from real cloth, ensuring both superior posability and aesthetic appeal. Daryl comes equipped with a harpoon, a crossbow, a rifle, and his trusty Morning Star, ready to face any challenge head-on. Featuring a highly posable body with 6 interchangeable hand parts, enthusiasts can recreate a variety of action poses from the series. From a poncho to a trench coat, I can see that Daryl's sticking with the trends. Before that, we get a closer look at Daryl Dixon, the Exquisite Super Series to be exact. I'd like to thank the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample. This guy is slated to drop September 2025. The asking price online, some may be asking, $109.99. So he's going to be a little less than $110. We've already had a look at a Walking Dead character, one that was also from the Exquisite Super Series. We're going to be bringing him in a second, but first what I'll be bringing in right now is my trusty tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. If those are curious to wonder, Daryl Dixon, in fact, is going to stand at 6 inches in height, working out to be a figure that's 15 centimeters tall. That other character is Walking Dead Dead City's Negan. And then comparing the two figures side to side, Norman Reedus stands at 5'10", depending on where you're looking. Jeffrey Dean Morgan either will show as standing 6'1" or 6'2". Sizing then, if you're looking at the two figures, Negan is going to be a little bit taller than Daryl, so I think the sizing is correct. With Daryl are obviously accessories, but before we look at those things, the figure does also come included with a display stand. The stand may be considered by some too high of a stand to have the figures displayed on, but you can easily just take the top of the tray off and just have this part as being the part that the figure stands on. One thing though you'll notice when you get these things opened up, and that located inside the bag, Hiya Toys does include as well a Ziploc baggie. What's going to store inside the baggie? Maybe dead body parts? No, not dead body parts. Although, no, what you can actually do is store all the accessories that aren't currently being displayed with Daryl. Just put them inside the baggie, roll them back up, and store them conveniently inside the box. So there's a place at least to put them where you don't have to go back to your storage. You don't have to go looking around for where that box went. Where did the box go for Walking Dead's Daryl Dixon? Everything is here right on the ready. Then, of course, again, you've got yourself the display stand lids. Now, the lids themselves, you can still attach the display stand neck. But then again, some would just prefer to have the stand being displayed like this. Because again, then that's going to be the same height as all the other figures on your shelf. You then have two options available. One that has, though, the Walking Dead Daryl Dixon printed on the front. One that doesn't have that, though. This one does have at least more breathing holes. More breathing holes, because this one actually only really has the one. So when you get yourself the adjustable neck, I know it's a little on the lengthy side, but you know, again, if you want to have them displayed right in the back, right in the middle, perfect place to really view a movie, then you can store it there or you can display it there. If though you'd like to have variety, everybody really loves to have variety, you can still plug it in that same place as before, but you can plug it over here, over here. It looks like the theater is completely empty. You can choose, you can choose exactly what seat, if you don't drop it, what exact seat you want to have the figure displayed on. Now, obviously, looking at the length of this neck, no one in their right mind is probably going to be using a neck this long, because, I mean, obviously, unless you're having Daryl Dixon flying in the sky. But at least, though, what you can do is detach the parts that you don't want. So let's say we want to just keep this part, and then we want to get rid and remove altogether these knuckle joints. You just take the top part off and just throw this. No, don't throw this. Maybe put it inside, in fact, the bag. Then take the neck that we want to keep the waist clip on there, and we just basically open that up, and then it'll fit then around Daryl's waist. Now, I may have even chose poorly not to have a much longer neck, but the idea is still there. You can have the neck exactly the length that you want to have it, and then you can have your figures displayed on the shelf. I don't really ideally like having multiple holes like this. I mean, generally, though, when I've displayed all my Exquisite mini-series figures on the shelf, I usually go with just the regular lid. The lid that has at least the name, because again, at least you know the characters and you know the series that they're from. Lots get loaded with the figure. Lots of hands, too. Daryl Dixon has a total of 8 swappable hands. Now, already on the ends of his forearms are what I feel to be pretty useless relaxed hands, because if you have plans at all to have the figure displayed with any one of the weapons, then these relaxed hands isn't gonna cut it. Speaking of cutting it, by the way, though, he does also have a couple of hands that already have molded in knives. But before we actually talk about those things, if you do want to swap these out, pop them off from the provided posts on the ends of his forearms, perhaps entertain then the idea that the figure does have a couple of gripping hands. A little bit smaller in size, ideal for holding like the arrows, for example. He does also have much wider hands, one specifically dedicated to fit around a trigger, one a much wider one to hold the understock of the gun. The figure does also have, as I already sort of gave it away, 2 knives, 2 hands that already have knives embedded into them. Now, you can't take these knives off. They're permanently molded in place. Some would cry foul, say, why? Why take the time to mold hands with knives when you can't remove them? Well, he already has gripping hands over here. Why? I mean, this seems so much smarter. I mean, yes, it's going to be more of a plastic for the company to have to produce, but if you have plans already for a figure to hold knives, why not just produce hands that already have the knives in their hands, so you don't have to worry about losing them at all. The figure does also come included, of course, with his Morning Star. I like that the Morning Star at least has a dangling, real functioning chain. This can, of course, fit into any one of those hands. I guess if we want to show you guys here, let's grab one of the smaller gripping hands. The plastic, by the way, for these fingers is pretty forgiving too. So it's easy to get things like the Morning Star in there, providing you get past his thumb. Slide it all the way in there. And now Daryl Dixon has his flying Morning Star. Put that off the side. The figure does also come included with his harpoon. Now, the harpoon's a fairly large thing. He can use it really as certainly a walking stick. He can use it to impale the undead or anybody that's going to get in his neighboring way. It does have a point on the end. It's not super sharp of a point, though, so you're not going to worry about drawing any bit of blood. It's cast really well. I like the coloring that they've used for the darker chestnut brown, and there's a few little dark, like gunmetal gray accents in there as well. The figure does also come included with his rifle. The rifle doesn't seem to have anything that moves. There's no moving flint on the back, but all in all, just a really nice looking rifle. I had the figure displayed at the beginning of this review, the opener of this review, with a figure with the rifle in his hand. I think they'll likely going to be displaying the figure with his crossbow. It just sort of seems the Daryl Dixon thing to do. Speaking of the crossbow, yeah, the figure does also come included with this crossbow. It does actually have real threading on there too, so while everything else is cast here in black plastic, a little bit of nice silver added in there as well, they did actually put in real threading. Now you can actually get yourself these arrows. Now you get a total of 3 arrows if I can pick them all up. From what I can see, the arrows are all the same. There's nothing at all that changes between the 3 of them. Kind of hold it up to my hand so you guys can see here. Like the feathers are all kind of more of a dark gunmetal gray. There's a little nice bit of silver accents, and even really on the ends as well. They've tipped them carefully with a little bit of copper red. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, hold on a second. How is he going to be able to carry all these arrows? Well, we're only going to really necessarily carry 2 of the arrows because the other one has plans for the crossbow. He comes also with a faux leather quiver. You take the arrows, slide them in between the handles like that, and then basically you would just wrap that then around the figure's waist. Not even so much, I guess, around his waist. You're going to kind of slide it over top of his shoulder like this, drape it across the back, and now Daryl Dixon has the extra storage of his arrows on the back. Put the figure down here for a second. No, we have plans, though, for this other arrow. The arrow, as would be expected, does slide in the little canal there on the top. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is actually a dedicated clips. So there's a clip right in the middle where you can clip your arrow onto it, and it clips well to the point where, like looking at this, it doesn't go anywhere. Now there's also these holes on the sides there too, so if you wanted to, you can also take, so let's go back to the quiver. Back to the quiver we go, slide out the extra arrows. For really how much storage space the figure does have for all these extra arrows, realistically, you could have like a few extra arrows get afforded the figure. So again, there's these clips right here, so you can slide. Kind of really hard to see where we're going here. There's little holes right there, and you basically just slide your arrows into that. Why am I now having such a hard time doing this? Just clip them in place. I think we've got it. And you basically, again, just rinse and repeat until you have the extra arrows. So that's 3. 3 here. I mean, again, I could fit another 3 inside the bottom chamber, the little storage space for the extra arrows. 1 on the top, which again isn't going to be going anywhere thanks to that clip. And then with, again, like his quiver on the back of his body. Hiya really could have also included a few extra arrows as well, because there is enough storage space to kind of keep all the arrows at bay. The figure does also come included with this duffel bag. The duffel bag, I suppose, could store something, like, for example, if you want to take yourself the rifle, I guess the rifle could fit in there. Harpoon might be a little on the longer side. I suppose that could also fit there as well. And you can also drape that around the figure's body, pretty much in the same way that I did with the quiver. The last remaining things that come include with Daryl is that the figure does have a swappable head, which is right over here. And he does also come included with his hat. On paper, I like the look of the hat, even though it's really not made out of paper. It's made, though, of a kind of a soft rubber material, but then what they've done is they wrapped it in fabric. The fabric almost does have a feel like it's suede. A very smooth, I guess that would be a more expensive suede, but it does have a smooth to the touch feel to it. One issue, though, I really have with it is the way that they've wrapped the inside of the hat. They've tucked in the fabric, which now causes, if, like, for example, you want to put it on Daryl's head, every time you try to push it down, the hat springs back up. And I think a lot of it really has to do with the fact that the fabric is tucked in there like that. Most people likely would just use the string and then have the hat dangling on the back of Daryl's body. I probably would end up doing that also as well. But to put it on his head might be a little harder to do, just because, again, like, they put the fabric on the inside rim there as well. Remove that. The figure does also have, rounding out the remaining of his things, a swappable head sculpt. If you prefer your Daryl to have a little more hair covering the front of his face, so he's hiding his appearance, you can also have him figure displayed with this head sculpt instead. I think both heads are actually pretty good. I know I read some complaints that people said that the Negan didn't really look a whole lot like Negan. I think, like, the Daryl does look, to be honest, a little bit better than Negan's head sculpt. Again, if you want to have Daryl with just the hair on the front of his face, you can go with that look. I probably would end up displaying the figure with this head sculpt. Or again, if you want to have his prettier face shown a little bit more, you can go with this one instead. Swapping out the heads, by the way, I'm just going to kind of hold on to the torso and pop it off the peg. One thing you will want to be careful, though, is that he does also have a removable scarf. That scarf, if you're not careful, will come off the moment you pop the head off. Take the head that we want to then use, and we're just going to pop it back on the peg. Make sure it's securely enough on there. There we go. Is that the neckband? Yeah, okay. Scarf's still on there. Not really necessarily a scarf. It's more kind of a bandana. I guess we can also take the quiver off, too, because we know it's just only going to get in the way of things. I guess also, too, not only could it be served as a quiver, but it could also be a place, I'm sure, to store the Morning Star. So there's a place for that as well. Again, when we look at this head sculpt, paint's pretty good. I think the sculpting's all in all pretty good. I don't think it lets down the character at all. To compare him, though, with the Negan that we've already had a look at, I always really display Negan now with the smiling face. I know some people said that didn't really look a whole lot like Negan. Would you at least say, though, of the two sculpts that we've gotten from Hiya, this might be, though, the better of the two? Yeah, I would agree. He does have the stubble there on the front of his face. I think also the coloring on Daryl looks a little bit better than Negan. Negan looks like he's a little too cleanly washed. Nobody really washes their faces at all in The Walking Dead. They always kind of, especially Daryl. Daryl sets the bar when it comes to just dirty faces overall. Dirty hair, too. Nice sculpted overall hair. So used to really seeing Daryl, I should say, with a poncho or kind of more rugged-looking clothing. He's actually this time around walking around with a trench coat. So the trench coat is kind of an interesting thing because it's sculpted really well. By how thick it is on the end like this really had me for a second thinking that there was a wire built into it, but I don't think it is. It's just a really well-tailored jacket. The buttons admittingly seem a little larger when you look at the scale of that compared to the rest of the jacket, but I think all in all, though, the jacket looks really good. It's got some nice age to it, just the right amount of age. He still has to look GQ, but he doesn't have to look like he just walked out of a store. So you got some weathering there along the trim, weathering over here also as well, and you got a nice little bit of weathering on the shoulders. If you move that out of the way, Daryl sports now a shirt, kind of more like a sweater, suspenders, a leather belt, I would imagine this would probably be a faux leather material, and black slacks. The attention to detail I do like is that they actually miscolored his laces. So on the one side he's kind of got more of a blue pair of laces, and on the other side he's got red. Shoes look naturally scuffed up. They probably could have even scuffed them up just a little bit more. And the undertreads look pretty good too. Yeah, it's a nice looking Daryl. I like the accessories. I like the head sculpt. I will say, though, that the head sculpt I think is better than Negan's. I think it's just a generally nice looking figure. Now, so Daryl's articulation. Let's start things obviously with the head. The head's going to be in a ball joint, so moving it back and forth isn't that hard to do, even though he has kind of long hair getting in the way of things. The head can look up and down, but it does also seem, looking at the base of his neck, that he also has a ball joint there too. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint, freely able to move around. The suspenders don't seem to do too much opportunity of hindering things. You can still easily get in and rotate the torso. When you start to kind of turn it back and forth, you do feel, though, that the suspenders are kind of pulling against you. It seems like he also has a bit of a waist swivel there as well. Bringing the arms out aren't that hard to do, considering for the fact the figure does also have a jacket on. You know, looking at how well Daryl Dixon turned out, I would love to see them do an Exquisite Super Series of Eric Draven the Crow. If this is kind of what we can get with a trench coat character, I think an Eric Draven Exquisite Super Series would be definitely on the table. Now for the arms, again, they can move forward and back. There is a swivel at the bicep, what seems to be a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. For his legs, his legs split out about that far. There seems to be, though, enough slack in his slacks so that you can actually get a fairly good splits on the character, whether you want to display him that way or not. Likely not. You can bring the legs forward, you can bring the legs back. There's a nice swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. And then if you roll up the legs, I know it kind of loses some of the illusion because there's no paint really there. But you can see, though, that this part, it looks almost like you'd be able to swivel it, but you can't. Likely they probably have added this extra piece. Maybe they've used the legs for something else, and then they just sculpted brand new. Like maybe the lower half of the legs are going to be used for certain characters, and then maybe that's why that's cut the way that it is. But the ankle does move up and down. You can rock it back and forth. And the figure does also have, Ward have normally said pegals on the bottoms of his feet. No, Daryl does not have pegals on the undersides of his feet. Just a force of habit. Like the look of Daryl. Again, I'm used to generally seeing Daryl a little dingier. Daryl a little dingier. That's nice. That's real nice. But generally wearing like a poncho or walking around not as tailored as he is right now. Another tailored chap next to him as well is the Exquisite Super Series Negan. Negan came to us from the Dead City and also Hiya Toys. Nice looking figures. I will say, though, like Daryl pulls it off better. Not only a better looking outfit, I'm a little less worried, I think, about problems with the fabric as I was going to have problems with Negan. Having, though, like that faux leather over time, it's not going to affect everybody. I understand that. But faux leather can be at times difficult because when it starts to flake, humidity or whatever starts to affect the material. I'm not going to have that issue at all when it comes to Daryl. Daryl's got, again, 2 swappable head sculpts. So again, if you want to go with that one or if you want to beeline it back to the one that we start with, I think both of them are good. I think that's the better of the two. Of course, he has this duffel bag. He's got the harpoon. He's got, again, his crossbow. Crossbow is going to be, at least for me, the one I'm going to always have the figure displayed with. Whether, though, Daryl has changed his look over the years and picked up better clothing, you can always then rely on the one thing he always seems to rely on himself, and that's the crossbow. I like that they included it. I like there's storage space as well to store the extra arrows. But again, like with all the extra arrows that he could have had, he sadly only gets 3. So, again, like I probably will just end up putting the other arrow in here just as a storage space to put that away. But yeah, I'm all in all pretty happy with the way that the character turned out. I'm hoping, though, that with Daryl setting the bar pretty high for what we might get moving forward with Walking Dead figures, that's certainly more on the horizon, as I think, again, like Daryl of the two is the better that we've gotten so far. Don't tell the dead. But Daryl's dropping, though, in September 2025. The sites that generally, though, stock Hiya Toys have him listed as $109.99. And I still think, though, for the price of what they're doing and that they're using real fabric for the jacket, for the shirt underneath, and obviously for the pants, I think that's still a great price. Some of the sculpting, though, on these figures don't always really measure up to the characters they have in real life. Daryl, I think, does pull it off better maybe than Negan. I know in the review of Negan, I thought the head sculpt was pretty good. I think, honestly, though, maybe the more that I've looked at the figure, I don't think it lands as good of a likeness of Jeffrey Dean Morgan as this one does of Norman Reedus. That sculpting obviously is doubled up by the fact that he does have 2 distinct head sculpts. One is where the hair is a little bit more covering over the front of his face. I think that works for my display of Daryl. And for displaying Daryl, I've also got him also with his crossbow. And I thought the knife in his hand was also a good touch. Also, speaking of knives, it was a good touch, though, that Hiya permanently had a knife sculpted into the hands. Sometimes, though, when you have an accessory that's really small, why have it as the accessory and then the hand that has to hold it? Because there's always going to be a risk that you're going to lose it. If you are really missing and thinking, well, he needs to have another gripping hand, he already has those hands anyways, why not give him a hand with a knife if that's the plan that you're going to have him displayed with anyways? What do you guys think of Daryl, Dixon? Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you think it's better than Negan, or do you think the Negan is a better sculpted figure? If you guys did enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. We're going to have some more videos, FYI, coming your way, so I hope you guys are going to be coming back for that. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.